Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. I hope that all of you are good and safe and sound at home. Students, yesterday we have talked about the past perfect tense, how to make the negative and interrogative sentences of past perfect tense. So today our new topic is active and passive voice of past perfect tense. So you should know about what is a voice, then we will talk about the active and passive voice. So students, voice is a form of verb that indicates whether the subject is performing the action or is being acted upon or receiving an action. So it tells you that a subject is performing an action or is receiving an action, right? There are two types of voices, students. First one is active voice and the second one is passive voice. So active voice, in active voice, the subject performs an action, right? For example, the dog scares the cat. Here dog is the subject of this sentence, right? So dog is doing something in it, doing an action. It means that it's a active voice. So if we talk about the passive voice, so subject is acted upon or receives an action in it, right? For example, the cat is scared by the dog. So here cat is the subject of this sentence, but it is a passive subject. How is it passive? Because it is receiving an action in it, right? Let me tell you briefly about active voice and passive voice. Alright, active voice, if the subject is performing the action, it means it's active in doing that action, right? So it is active voice. For example, the girl sings song. So here the girl is the subject, right? And sings is the verb. So the girl here is active and she is doing an action, right? So this one is called as active voice. If we talk about the second one, that is passive voice. So if the subject is having the action done to it, then the verb is said to be the passive voice. How? For example, piano is played by the boy. So here piano is the subject of this sentence, but it's a passive subject. How is it passive subject? Because it is not doing something, it is just receiving an action, right? So this is called as passive voice, this sentence, right? Students, we have dealt with the simple one, affirmative, negative and interrogative sentences. So now today we are going to make the passive voice of those sentences. So you should know about the rules of passive voice, how to convert active voice into passive voice. So first rule is that we need to change subject with the object. Then the second one rule is we change object with the subject, right? Subject becomes object, object becomes subject. Then comes the third form of verb. As I told you before that we use third form of verb in passive voice, right? So we will use third form of verb. Then comes had been as a helping verb, right? So we use just had in past perfect tense while making the simple one sentences, right? So if we talk about the passive voice, so we will use had been as a helping verb in passive voice of past perfect tense. So we will also use the word by, preposition by, to make the passive voice, right? If there will be object, you will use by in it. I have given here examples. So firstly we will talk about the affirmative sentences. I told you before that how to make the affirmative or affirmative simple sentences, right? Active sentences. For example, he had written a letter, right? So we put subject first, then comes the helping verb, then comes third form of verb, and then comes object. So this is the active form, active voice, right? So if we want to convert this active one sentence into passive voice, we need to change first subject with the object and object with the subject. How? Right? A letter had been written by him. We will put first object, then helping verb, then comes third form of verb, then we will use by because there is an object in it, right? So we will use by and then comes subject. This is how we change active voice into passive voice of affirmative sentences. Secondly, students, how to make active and passive voices of active voice in negative sentences. I have given here example. He had not written a letter. This is the active voice. I told you before, we put first subject, then comes helping verb, right? Had, then comes not, because it's a negative sentence, so we will use here not. Then comes third form of verb and then object in it. So this is the active voice. So how to change this one into passive voice? We put first object, then comes had, and you will not write been after had in negative sentence. You will write not after helping verb had, right? Then you will write been. So first comes object, then comes had, then not, been, and then comes third form of verb, and then we write by and then subject. So this is how we change active into passive voice of negative sentence. A letter had not been written by him, right students? Next one comes the interrogative sentences. So we write helping verb first while making the simple one, active voices, right? I told you before about it. We write here like this, helping verb, then comes subject, then third form of verb, then object, right? Like this, had he written a letter, and then we put at the end question mark, right? So if we want to make the passive voice of these active sentences, you will write like this, had a letter been written by him, right? We will write first had, helping verb, right? Helping verb only had, you will write been after object, right? Had, then comes object, then been, then third form of verb, then you will write by, and then the subject, right? At the end of that sentence you will put again question mark, because this is the interrogative sentence. Students, I hope that all of the points are clear. So this is the homework for you. You need to write this exercise of active and passive voice of past perfect tense on your neat notebooks. And there is another thing for you. There is a test for you, right? So you have to solve these sentences. You need to make the passive voice of these sentences, write on your neat notebook, right? You have to solve this test, take a picture of it, and then send it to me so that I can check it and send it to you back. Thank you very much.